Yeah, let's get going. Okay, again, welcome everybody. I am Jon Leslie, an Agile coach at Cove Insights, also a Favro Agile partner. Joined today by Patric Palm, who's one of the founders of Favro and also the CEO. So over to you, Patric.
Thank you so much. And well, the first question here is, why do we run this mini summit? And the reason is that, if you look at our customer base, a lot of the customers are, fast-growing companies with a lot of change, and they're using, Favro and its collaborative planning to handle, all that change going on all the time, between, product teams, marketing teams, with the management, etc. But it's quite common that people also use Favro for recruitment and onboarding, which makes a lot of sense because in these kind of companies, typically there's a lot of hiring going on, a lot of new people coming in, a lot of collaboration with external recruiters. So, again, just a lot of moving parts, and having an approach which is very, collaborative and very transparent and very visual, lends itself very well. So what we thought that we would do is that we'll take some of the really nice practices that we have seen in how Favro is being used for this, and we'll share it with all of you. So today will basically be some examples on how to do recruitment pipelines and onboarding flows, using Favro. So with that said, back to you, Jon.
Thanks, Patric. And I also want to call out that as I'm going through these examples, these real world examples, actually, if you do have questions, feel free to use the chat to enter those, and we'll either answer them in real time or at the end of the walkthrough. Okay, so as you can see here, I'm going to start at what's typically referred to as the portfolio level of an organization. So essentially the leadership level of the organization in an Agile company. Portfolio backlog, as you can see here, is one of the key components of this. So you would have all of your strategic initiatives using the power of the hierarchy and Favro backlogs and boards to create, strategy epics, opportunity epics, business enablers, so on and so forth, breaking that all down. Then taking these and committing them to a portfolio Kanban, where you're then very easily able to visually track the flow from start to finish of not, a development team's features or user stories flowing from left to right, but your actual strategic initiatives, your business epics, what's driving the business from left to right, in a very visual way, seeing instantly where everything stands, and then the ability to click any one of those and drill down into the details if need be. So that would also hold true for your recruitment efforts. So a fast-growing company, obviously constantly recruiting. A major effort for recruitment and onboarding is constantly underway. So do this in the same way. So maybe say we have an open rec for a new CMO, Chief Marketing Officer. And the idea is that once you're ready to actually start recruiting for this particular position, you probably first want to pull it onto your portfolio Kanban because it's such a high level key leadership role within the organization. Pull it into eventually analysis, figure out exactly what you want the requirements of this position to be, the responsibilities of this position to be, maybe formulate on the card what that job advertisement maybe is going to look like, what's the budget for this recruitment effort, what's the salary we're willing to pay, so on and so forth. That can all live on the card. And you can see how the conversation around recruiting for this particular position can also live on the card. Now, as this gets pulled into, okay, we figured out this is definitely something we want to pull the trigger on. We're going to pull this into implement here. You can see it automatically fired off a trigger saying ready to start. And you can see that back in the backlog too. And this is also being seen because the boards can exist in multiple places. not only here, but on a company dashboard and also in a people operations or HR collection. So they're able to see what actions you're taking here at the portfolio level, down at maybe other levels of the organization or within other teams. So what you can do in Favro, another kind of unique capability, is to break not only in a hierarchy and a backlog, but break cards down from big work into maybe more specific or smaller work. So what you can do is you can say, for this Chief Marketing Officer recruitment, let's break this down to its own board. All right. And that is something that I've already done. And you can see I broke it down to this Chief Marketing Officer recruitment pipeline. And that exists in multiple places as well. If I click on this, I can choose where I want to see it. We're working internally to recruit for this position. So it's part of that people operations HR collection. And we're also maybe working with a recruitment agency, some sort of executive headhunter maybe, to recruit for this position. So let's first look at it here. And you can see, just like you would do any other flow-based or pipeline-based or process-based workflow, you can map out your recruitment process onto a Favro board and view that recruitment pipeline, in this case, in a very visual way. So anybody who wants to drill down from the executive level, portfolio level, to see the progress towards this effort, because it's linked back to that card on that portfolio Kanban and in that portfolio backlog, can instantly do that via this link, and it can go back up the other way too. So here, we see everybody who has selected resumes, people who are scheduled for interviews, background check, offers, so on and so forth. So we're going to focus on this one candidate, Vera Warner. If I open up her card, you can see the power of having this real-time collaborative workspace of the Favro cards. You can drag and drop maybe in her LinkedIn profile image, a link to her profile page, attach her resume, so on and so forth, right? You can even start to have the conversation relative to each candidate directly on the card, which can come in particularly handy when you have multiple people maybe doing roundtable interviews, whatever the case may be, providing feedback on all the candidates. So as she gets pulled in, the resume looks good. Let's schedule her for some interviews. Maybe those interviews go well. Again, maybe people are providing feedback directly on the card. Something like that. You can see the entire conversation history. Everybody gave the thumbs up from the interview standpoint. So we're going to do a background check. Background check checks out. And we're going to make the offer. She accepts the offer, eventually gets pulled in to hire like this. So something that's nice too, and this is something that came up as a question in a previous mini summit, was the ability to turn on things like time on board and time in column. And so this is automatically being tracked behind the scenes. So we can see how long is it taking at each and every stage for each and every candidate, which is time in column, and also overall time in board. How long is it taking to recruit each one of these individuals overall, right? So hopefully it's not going to take this long, but again, this is walkthrough demo data. So what happened here when Vera is the winner? She is accepted this offer. She's going to be the new CMO. As soon as she was pulled into hired, and you might also have a board, not maybe even just specific per actual role that you need to fill, but you might have an aggregate board for all of your positions, open racks, which is also possible in Favro because the cards can exist on multiple boards at the same time, maybe using tags to indicate the position that they're actually going for. But the point being, and what happened here when she was actually hired, is that a couple of automations automatically fired off. It automatically assigned the person responsible to start the onboarding process. It automatically tagged this card as onboarding, making it very visually explicit. And it also automatically added it, as you can see here, to an onboarding board or an onboarding flow. So if I open this up, you can see based on Favro's soon to be released relations panel, new relations panel up here, that she's been hired, and from an onboarding perspective, where that automation automatically added her to that flow, you can see that she's in the ready for onboarding column or stage. So for example's sake, I just happen to have that particular onboarding flow also as a part of this HR collection. It might also exist in another collection or multiple other collections, maybe an onboarding team specific collection, but you can also visualize that here. So as she gets pulled into equipment, get her equipment ready and login set up for all of her accounts, maybe her first day she starts doing the paperwork. Thanks to relations on the cards themselves, we can see that, of course, from a recruitment standpoint, she was hired. And then the recruitment or the HR team can see for all of their new hired candidates, exactly what stage people he's either they're at from an onboarding perspective. So we can see, okay, Rare, for example, is currently at the paperwork stage. Say Matilda got hired for another position and she was down here at the equipments and logins ready. You could see both of those statuses directly from here, especially if this was on some sort of aggregate recruitment pipeline board. So that is basically kind of the internal flow, right? But you might also have the situation where you're working with a recruitment agency. So if I drill into it here, this is maybe an external collection. You have the ability to have what are called external members who don't see organization-wide internal collections. They're only going to see very specifically what they're given access to. And you might also choose to use these free, you get one free external guest account for every paid member account. If they just simply really want to be able to add cards, edit cards, and move them on the board, and that's all you really want your external partners to be able to do. But they could have that shared, in this case, recruitment pipeline. Maybe you're sharing that across multiple collections so that that recruitment agency could help directly on this board. Or they might choose to have, or you might choose for them rather to have their own board and then add that board from the recruitment agency, the external partner collection, to an internal teams collection so they could visualize that progress internally without having to go to this specific recruitment agency collection. So that, in kind of a nutshell, is a great use case, a real world use case of how Favro has seen people use the platform, not just for marketing, not just for software development, but for things as wide and varied as recruitment and onboarding. And it just makes sense to use the same tool for all of your functions across the entire organization, because it becomes that single source of truth that everybody seems to be looking for, and for good reasons, and definitely helps with this whole aspect of transparency, visibility, as Patrick was calling out, and overall business agility in these fast-moving, growing organizations. So back to you, Patrick.
Thank you so much, Jon. And great calling out some cool automations, and the fact that you can set up a collection for your collaboration with externals, because with recruitment that is very often the case that there are external partners involved. At Favro, our own company, we do exactly that. So it's been pretty smooth for us, now when we've been recruiting quite a bit recently, that we have these collections where we have external partners involved. They provide candidates, they go through a kind of recruitment pipeline. Once we sign them, they automatically get into our onboarding workflow. And what's great with this is that since these newly recruits also have access to this, they get a very first experience of using Favro for themselves. And then, of course, the rest is the collaboration for their actual job. So with that said, Yeah, thank you so much. If there's any questions whatsoever from any of you, you can just ping our team and they will be happy to answer. See you in the next mini summit.
Excellent. Thanks. Goodbye.
Thank you.